Sabengi, Shemba Shita Gala, Kadisuma de Esana, or Setila Shana, Chowami, Kore Shanang, Jumin, and you can Tatila Shana, Chansemin, Zimbachuna Tawamin, Chene, or Tasuma Shansin Chene, Ra, when the data, such a Shemba Shita, and such a Benedict Sabenja, such a Benedict song. O timbare tadigi o sundamendo anita paje diuchinjungi la majaya wa ta dini khandre sana chitila shana chowa min se gala chitila shana o chiti pinzo la shane ani chima ondo duje ki guji chudim ani masuna 아니 저 그지 투좀 마소나 아니 자 저와 마인 저와 생각이 최세대 다 가생하죠 아마 시원하신 체지 취직할 때 따라시와 전발아 주배 만달라야 아니 저와 치만 되네서 체표디 아니면 그냥 손수 메동아 전바시와 주고 그와 연장 아니 체디 핀조라 차네 치망원도 주비체도 안에 산로 체는 마상바 대주지기 안에 계주 메기주봉 계주 수좀 자와는 마소나 안에 텐더에 강사대 치와 말에 애송거래
Then also now what to say there's a verse a teaching by Sakya Pandita which is called the separation from the four attachments. And it begins by saying that if one is attached to this life, one is not a Dharma person. And the meaning of, there are multiple ways to explain this. One can explain it with respect to the different stages of the path of the three types of persons, of the lower sort of orientation or intermediate type of orientation, person who has that kind of orientation, or but here, if we take this in the sense of a person who is smaller scope or a smaller, lesser orientation, then the intention here is that if someone is attached to this life, then they're not a Dharma person. The meaning here being that if one doesn't engage in the ethical conduct and the practices that pertain to getting rid of, avoiding the 10 kinds of non-virtuous behavior, and also one has to do this with the intention of avoiding falling into a lower state of existence in the next life. If one doesn't have that minimum orientation of practicing the 10 avoiding the 10 non-virtues in order to prevent falling into a lower state of existence, then one is not a Dharma practitioner. Because after this life, when it's over, one is going to necessarily leave it behind and shift into or transmigrate into another life. And if one is only concerned with the pleasures and happiness of this life, then one is not a Dharma practitioner. The word Dharma refers to, as we said, the sort of meaning of the word is to hold one up in the minimal sense of protecting one from falling into a lower state of existence.
Chitila Shamba me Shavika. That do joke and did you go Sena? Only you are Shima. I don't want to have you combat 10 to Yangan. Or Mandala, you are Shima want to have you combat 10 to Yangi. Teach you. Ani or Gishi Tutum Yamsulangaji, then you go race. Teang, you are Shima want to combat. Some tend to ye tang, Terayang, Chimang do quantum compound, some tend to never Mayimba. Ani Casore Lanam Basa Yanda, but so with Sanjaji compound top and chapala, Ani then Mundi compound some over some Michipa, Mundi compound Marcasa, Mundi compound Matoba Michipa. In the one you then cabaret change Matona, and the Sanjay Coban Dubaki, and the tank Tanya Matawa in Zang. Lanzo Jula, Tanya San with them, Mania Patu, Sergeant Maombe, Team Mazan may be Jula Love. Gosum de don't remember why it had by Ledu Jawan Nature, you doshi Sama Tampa Che, Chenny so on, Chenny, or the Tigi, or Lam Cho, Anamba Sanjay Comatoba Chebala, then Cabaret Chan. And the Chinese Sama you go great, Taju Titani. Or tenderly, then Chinese Sama Tedagi, Gula, and the Lavachi, Lamgangi, Tedilla, or Tendigi, Javachima, then Chinese Sama, Gula, Lamgangi, Kansatella, and that I you chung up. What did you go at the Dango?
Lumpkin
love, love Ganchi, Duzola. Then Chabaji tended to Gula love Ganchi.
Kibu drink Kasa Kibu Chimbo, Kibu
Chungu,
Kibu Chung, Kibu Chung, Konda, Kibu Chung, the
Tanda Digi, you Java Chima, the only combat them top of them Tema Mayimba. Teang, Ani Sanjay, you combat top of Chabachi, then Della, then Chinese Sawajugova. Chidu Java Sanjay, you command Toba Chavala, and you command Ruba Chabaki, then the Chinese Samajuku Grace. Ten Maya, Madonna, and a Lambda Sajion Gumares, the Lamrin Dudungi, Lamjojula, Chinese time with the Mania Patu Saji Mion West. In that then Chinese Samati, Gula Lago Grace, Sidua, or at that Tendijila, you Chung.
So then one shouldn't be satisfied even with that minimal basis for being a Dharma person, practitioner of Dharma. That alone is not sufficient. One has to, in addition to avoiding the 10 kinds of non-virtues, one has to, in a positive way, practice the 10 virtues. And in that way, the purpose of doing this is so that one ensures that not only when one leaves this life and transmigrates or shifts into the next life, you ensure that not only is it the case that you'll not be born into an evil state of existence, but even if you're born into a good state of existence, one has to have all of the different kinds of conditions necessary to be able to practice Dharma again. So in order to have those positive conditions present, it's necessary that we engage in the practice of the 10 virtues so that we're born as like a human with all of the with good sense faculties and all of the sort of external and internal conditions that we need in order to be able to study Dharma, to practice Dharma. So it's absolutely essential then to not only avoid the 10 non-virtues, but to practice the 10 virtues so that our next life will be excellent. And then this next life alone, when we're doing this, we shouldn't think about this merely in terms of obtaining some kind of pleasant condition or situation in our next life. Rather, we should be thinking of it in terms of ensuring that we get a good life in the next life and have that as a basis for continuing to practice such that we'll be able to continue to be reborn into good states of existence, life after life. And then, in addition to that, we should be looking at this not merely from the point of view of having a good life, but thinking of it in terms of ensuring that we get a good life in the next life so that we'll be in a position to be able to develop the path that leads to the perfect awakening of Buddhahood. So in this case, then, when we say it's the person of lesser scope, such a person is primarily interested in avoiding falling into a low state of existence and wants to obtain a good state of existence in the next life, be reborn into a good life. But that attitude or intention, if one adopts it as a sort of expedient or method, as sort of temporary point of departure for progressing along the path to perfect awakening, then one is engaging in the practices of the person of lesser scope. As said, one's engaging in the path in a way which is in common with the person of lesser scope. Here, when it says it's in common with it, it indicates that we are actually doing this with a Mahayana sort of orientation generally, but the practices that we're performing are those that are common to a person who has a lesser kind of orientation or scope.
Oh yeah, chedila shana chewa mi che. Tene ta tilje la, juchung chedila, na sonde mi tunga timpa te che. Ta tilje la, ane karsa kwa da shana ngejung mai se. Ane kwa la shenba shana ngejung mai se. Kwa kaso de, koyu pinzo tamje. Ane kaso de, koyu pinzo tendu nyede. Ane kaso sacha nyelenji pumbo de chojongi chedu. Ane koyu pinzo tendu nyede. Koyu pinzo kandi linayang. Ane kaso de chedi pinzo dang. Chimi pinzo je. Ane koyu pinzo la chade. Wa koyu pinzo tendu nyede. Koyu ane pinzo la chane kowa la ngewa la jingwaki. Gendu madongwa. koyu pinzo la yuanden du tongdi. Ani koyu pinzo tendo nye sona. Ani tenda wa tera kowa la ngawa jingmi nge chung jo shep di jia meba yinzang. O, ani kowa la xiana nge chung me se tembare. Kowa la xiana nge chung min.
Then the second of the four attachments that one is to separate from or get rid of is the line of the verse then says, if one is attached to samsara, then one doesn't have renunciation. Here, samsara is the contaminated aggregates, which have been the aggregates which are contaminated and that have been appropriated or taken up through a contaminated process. So once one has taken up these contaminated aggregates, then no matter what kind of experience one has, it's necessarily of the nature of samsara and suffering. So that being the case, then we should not, one is not to think that while one's in a samsaric state, that think that things are good, that one has obtained some kind of good situation, one has all kinds of excellent body, excellent possessions, excellent life. That is a misconception, which is perceiving something which is actually of the nature of suffering as if it was the nature of real happiness. So that sort of misconception of samsara as actually being of the nature of happiness prevents us from understanding samsara as it actually is, as a contaminated state which is pervaded by suffering. And if one has attachment to samsara, even to the happiness of samsara, if you are attached to the happiness of this life or any kind of excellent thing that could occur in the future, in a future life, or any kind of pleasant, pleasurable situation that one can experience here or in the future, then one has not developed renunciation. Renunciation really means a kind of disgust or aversion, revulsion towards samsara in general. And one has to develop that renunciation and disgust, even towards happiness or pleasure, which is by nature contaminated.
Kepi tama trawaje, jiwi tama chiwa yin sheni kala. Oda gube zani maduba mayimba. O tar gube maduba ji zawani mebai. Yin zang pumbo di chojongo chidu chidar bejang. Ani kaso dungaji rangshin meba. Dungaji rangshin meba. O pumbo sacha nyeri ji pumbo tela ngawa ju, pumbo tela nyemi su toni. Pumbo tela 아니 가서는 메드비 로지 마제 봐도 풍부 대라 타라비 타바 되냐지 마제 봐도 아니 가서는 내중제와 잼매 봐. 풍부디 예미 마동 봐도 타바 되니 그 로망 내중 자와 자와네 잼매 봐 인상 다 말한서 동아 탐제 중사대 아니 사전 예례지 풍부 때라 때나 중화 예당 가와 나와 치와 아니 오다 동아제기 인도바다 차와당 다 서와게 동아 강가 풍부디 때라 때나 중화 인상 풍부디 동아제 라신도 마동 파도 아니 코랑에와 중화게 내중 자가 제사산에 매바 인상 아니 코라샤나 내중 민 세대 말이
당보 직제
사바군지 타제진 사바군지 타제진 세가나 랑게 안에 배서 요구 자주 전에 반조 런지 피순사와지 사와지 이나양 타마제 안에 세조하다 안에 태당 차주와 사바군지 타제진 첨보야네 태도 타동지를 장라 안에 미 과사 첨보 안에 된데 간대지 이나양 탈 안에 타동을 하시래시 배나가서 지진을 소환하신 야진 주된 최균안이 레지왕교 코라치 나대로 콜리지와니도균안이 코와 다자양다니도 줄을 세가라 콜리지의 자wo 이나양 야마 tren도 주에 야지 이나양 아니 르드나양 마냐와레게 인장 첨보연이 타동 줄是吧
then the way of understanding samsara correctly is to recognize that no matter what one accumulates, one will lose. And no matter how, what exalted status you acquire, it will be lost. So the first of these is that no matter what kind of wonderful things that we get and that we collect, all of those things will be lost eventually. They'll all disappear. And that applies even like to our bodies, to our possessions, to whatever houses, whatever we get. All of these things will disappear eventually. And then similarly, whatever kind of status we achieve, even if we become, say, the sort of God that controls the world, like Indra. Indra was the king of the gods, and he was the ruler of the world in a sense. And although he was born into that high status of being king of the world, he nevertheless eventually dies and falls even into hell and so forth. So, or we can talk about like a universal monarch, someone who is a king or ruler that governs the entire world. That such a person who's an emperor controlling the entire world, eventually they die and they'll fall into, often they'll fall into some lower state of existence. They're subject to that. So this being so,
Then
we have to look at, then properly evaluate the contaminated aggregates that we have taken up. Instead of seeing them as like happiness, the source of happiness, we need to recognize that as long as we have taken up, appropriated these contaminated aggregates, it's inevitable that we will, once we're born, we're going to age, we're going to get sick, and we're going to die. That's that's just the nature of these aggregates, that they are subject to aging, sickness, and death once they come into existence. So having recognized then that that's the nature of the contaminated aggregates, and seeing them correctly, then on that basis, by understanding their defects, the defects of the contaminated aggregates, then and only then can we develop a kind of a revulsion towards them, and this kind of disgust towards the contaminated aggregates is itself the defining characteristic of renunciation of samsara. If on the other hand one sees the contaminated aggregates as some kind of good thing that's to be treasured, then there's no place for the development of the disgust towards the contaminated aggregates, which is the source of actual renunciation. So then the verse says that if one's attached to samsara, there's no renunciation.
Oh yeah, that thing. 가서 코르샤는 내주미 세가라 아니 코타다 동아지 라신도 좀 통해 아니 코라는 야와 충이 아니 가서래 나와 주의 아바 타바 되니게 로제마 많이 바지 아니 깨가지고 그 아래에서 코타다 동아지 라신도 텔레 통해 아니 동아래 동아녀와 시와기 아니 타바라 되니 타바 되니게 로제마 많이 바지와 시 요증기가라.
So then, this what's called renunciation here. It literally means like a wish to emerge from, a wish to get out of samsara, a wish to rise out of this samsaric state. So that wish to get out of samsara is, you could say, is the attitude which is interested in and is striving towards liberation. And the liberation here referring to the pacification of suffering, the complete, total pacification of suffering. And then once one has that kind of attitude of wishing to get out of samsara, renunciation, and a orientation towards the desiring and wishing to achieve liberation, striving for liberation, then that is itself the proper attitude of the person of the intermediate scope here, of the three types of attitudes. Oh.
那天天提起了，还是考了现在我就明，打对了现在强生命，打对了现在强生命，现在他就希望那些一件呢，让你这个，俺那可以动啊个一穷呢，让你这个，俺那他把推你给落结巴这些呢，让你这个西的推你给落谁的推的。 是吧？让几部花了几袋钱哇，闲了上了赚了马当完钱，让东啊进那做了没水包给，俺你没水包给俺你，俺你让你东啊他把对包给，俺你我让你几部洗的洗完等眼的，我听着为打断了闲了，俺你抢什么的？抢什么了？俺你看着就过来闲了。 现在都俺那让把那么把样的先东啊进那完了，没事比人家艰难。俺那体育困难浪的，吃都吃完先去吞都，那么把样的把作为三节恐怕吞多年我就个个要啊延长，让你几步，俺那东啊年我习，俺那习惯吞多年了，俺那太强什么的，对了，强什么的，
So
不说。
成就什么样？
成就什么嘛的？应该成就什么嘛的？
So then the third line of this verse is that if one is attached to one's own objective, one is not a bodhisattva. So here, being attached to one's own objective in this particular context refers to even the striving, the attitude which causes one to strive for liberation. Striving for liberation, if it's done for oneself alone, that is, if you turn your back on the sufferings of others and you are solely concerned with the achievement of your own individual peace, individual freedom from samsara, then one has as one's objective just oneself, one's own objective. And so that sort of self-centered attitude, which is striving for one's own liberation, one's own peace, is attachment to that. Precludes the possession of bodhicitta, the bodhicitta being the attitude or the wish to become a fully awakened Buddha for the sake of all other sentient beings. Their bodhicitta refers to, again, a sort of striving to become fully awakened, to become a Buddha. And the reason one is doing that is not out of self-interest, but rather is done out of concern for the sufferings of all other sentient beings. When one sees the sufferings of other sentient beings and is unable to bear that and develops compassion towards them based upon the sort of unbearable vision of the suffering of others, then that serves as a foundation for turning away from one's own self-interest and instead turning away from just striving for one's own peace, one's own freedom from suffering. And then it induces one to enter into and to strive on the path to achieve the full awakening of Buddhahood. So if one doesn't have that, where one has turned away from self-centered, self-interested striving for one's own individual peace, and in favor of looking out for the welfare of others, then one does not have bodhicitta and one is not a bodhisattva.
Oh yeah, take it. 다들라 샤나 차선면 아니 자주 선발라 간절을 고아지래잖아 아니 랑이 아니 지보 타바 되니 그 로제파 빵한데 아니 체도 잡아 섬전 현지 텐도 하나하나만 바양다바作为산재지 공부 텐도 녀가지고 고기와데 책대 때마
So this, what is bodhicitta then? Here, this verse, this line is saying that it's turning away from one's own self-interest. Here, one's own objective being this striving for liberation from samsara just for oneself. And instead replacing that with a striving towards the achievement of unexcelled perfect awakening, that is the perfect state of Buddhahood. And the reason that one is doing that, the purpose of doing that is for the benefit of all other sentient beings. So that's what this line is showing.
Oh yeah, that is yeah. 진바중나 따와 민 세대 다 가수래잖아 사제 그 제주 샴바여지래 요아래 당 진바중나 따와 민 세대 아니 가르제고래잖아 아니 가수래 코아코지 그 뒤자와 아니 당전 말이 배게 아니 현유리 배가 크바지 마죠나 아니 딘지기 녀보 아니 딘지 오코비 따와기 녀보 로제기 안에 따와 많이 봐라.
So then here the fourth line then says, if one is attached to an adherence, or I'm sorry, if one is attached to misapprehension, then one doesn't have the view. There's no view. Here, the misapprehension that one is attached to is the root of samsara. That is the misapprehension of things as being real, holding them as being real. So it's this kind of misapprehension is the root of samsara, which is misapprehending things as if they existed by means of their own intrinsic nature. So if one has that kind of, is attached to that kind of misapprehension of things, then one doesn't have the view.
Oh yeah, that tender we took a show take 아니 티바츠비 람냠수 랭겐기 가사 지라 토마다 아니 가르레사나 티바츠비 람 아니 누바기 땡 캬바르젠지 아니 녀고고에나 아니 테드비 시도 아니 그지 메가지고 추름라 땡데 아니 땡데 두지기 둘러전 거야 직체 담보되기 직체 니와 되기 아니 대바 전복이 내중제 코아르시는 내중미 세디 티바치베 남지 양소 랭겐지 강사 되게 조 찬주그 셈텐도 냐와요 찬주그 셈도 봐 제발라 티자와 인제 제발라 아니 랑 코이동아랑 내와 지비 내중이 많아 셈전 신 동아진 나와라 메시비 인제 제발 매와 인장 어떻게 아니 가소래 라니 지보 코랑 영화 중에 타바트된 게 봐 많이 봐 어때다 디 코랑 영화 중에 인지 개비 치도 내라 코 샴발로 가지고 라니 코와래 동아지 나서 사는 영화 중에 그거에 팀에 중 계속 지진이와 되게 다들 현재 장준매세 되게 되네 안에 저와 동아지 나와라 메시비 인지 끝내 랑데 아니 최도 잡아 섬전지 전도 나는 바양다바作为산재지 공방 전도냐와 셈계주 대다위 셈계바 이나양 셈계바 잠지 나는 바양다바作为산재지 공방 토미네바 탑시 송대 냠수련고와 인장 아니 셔러 체바젠 나는 바양다바 作为산재지 공방 토바 체바라 탑시 송대 그 냠수련바 인자 셔러 체바제 돈이 도비 셔러 메나 아니 셔럽지 찾아 마사와 인상 어디니 셔럽 개발자 돈이 또 배셔라 땡라 배고와 that or tender Janeta Tashi Sunday Gilam Yamsu Lambala Dene Tar Anelana Basanja Yukoma to it to about to stand.
So then, if we take these three verses in terms of all of them in terms of the Mahayana path, then we would say that the first one, the first line of the verse is that if one's attached to this life, then one's not a Buddhist. Here, the Mahayana practitioner has to practice the practices common to the person of smaller scope, but does so such as getting rid of avoiding the 10 non-virtues and of practicing the 10 virtues. They do this not simply to achieve a pleasant life in the next life, but they do it with the attitude of I have to ensure that I have a good, I have to obtain a good life in the next life as a foundation for being able to practice the Mahayana path, so as to be able to progress towards Buddhahood. So they perform that the first stage of this with that attitude of wishing to become, to continue to be able to practice the Mahayana path. In order to do that, one has to have a good situation, good life. And so they do it in that way. Then the second one, where development of renunciation. Here, the development of renunciation is understanding samsara correctly is done not solely in order to develop the renunciation with respect to oneself as a motivation to achieve one's own liberation. Rather, one has to understand samsara properly and understand suffering in all of its forms in order to be able to properly understand the way in which others suffer. So through understanding samsara with respect to oneself, then one can see how others are in the same situation of samsara and are suffering in that way. And that recognition of others' samsara, the samsaric suffering of others, is the primary cause of developing great compassion towards them. And then based upon that great compassion, then one develops bodhicitta. So great compassion is what's developed from the second line indicates contemplating suffering in order to develop great compassion. And then the third, again, is the development of bodhicitta based upon the great compassion that one generates from seeing the samsaric sufferings of others. Then one develops the wish and the striving for oneself to achieve the perfect awakening of unexcelled perfect enlightenment of a Buddha. And so bodhicitta is necessary for that. And then that is the bodhicitta, the wish to become a fully awakened Buddha for the sake of all other sentient beings. And then finally, then the avoidance, getting rid of attachment to the misapprehension of things, that provides one with the wisdom that is able to understand the nature of reality, and it's necessary for the achievement of Buddhahood, even if one has developed great compassion and bodhicitta. Then without integrating that, without conjoining that with the wisdom that understands reality, there's no way to achieve the full awakening of Buddhahood. So therefore, the fourth line indicates a special kind of wisdom which is indispensable for the achievement of Buddhahood. And thus, in this verse shows the way, and especially the last two lines of it, show the way in which the method and wisdom are to be conjoined, such that they're integrated together.
Oh yeah, that tender. Ani don't you be share ten beba chebala, ani dini gina ten la bago. And that dini ten beba la. That Timakasan in there are Casan de Dua Case. 탄주루지 차지 추지려봐다 말려봤어요. 고대라 가산 대단 마이나 내송한 차지 추지려봤어요. 주고 숨자 시시셔 숨되게 주고 대직도 와 등을 잡자서 대단 마이나 탄야도 담바 마주나 군조 담바 좀 미니베 주마다 위 주마나 탄야도 좋나 군조 담바 샤미네바 주로 도와 네게 단다데 가산치 쉬워야돼 저 다야게 샤제 담바 줘반 좋나 추와 되니 줘봐 가양 세자 샤제 담바데 전단 담바 줘봐도 로 추이 줘봐데 가양 샤제 준반 줘봐라 아니 로 추와 되니 그 초스 줘봐래 로 추이 줘그래 초스 줘그래 다 샤제 준반 줘봐라 로 추와 초스 줘봐 대단 많이나 로 추와 그 샤제 준반 줘면이나 대단 많이나 안에 타녀도 군조 위치나 담바 맞좀 나야 아니 군조 담바 저 미니베스 로 추웨니 저 미니 대남자유로니 저 미니 바이베 로 추와니 샤제 저 미니나 아니 군조 담바 저 미니베 아니 주마다비 준바지 타냐지 저나양 저제 로 추웨 저 미니 바인장 아니 군조 담바 샤바 미니 바 주로 those he said yeah.
So then, previously, yesterday we were discussing the way in which, within the prasangika system, that how it is that one establishes phenomenal reality, and in the Tibetan, it's on the bottom part of page 343. It's under the where's that in the English? Yes? 117? Oh, okay. And it says there that here it says, to restate what is said here in the text. So here it's talking about this erroneous, or mistaken kind of awareness, how that is not able to establish ultimate reality, but in positing something as a spurious, validly cognized object, it can function as an adjunct to that, or it cooperates in establishing spurious things as validly knowable objects. And then it says here, if we read the text, then when one is establishing a true thing to be validly known, here a true thing to be validly known, or a real or a thing to be validly known is referring to ultimate reality. That sort of a mistaken awareness cannot posit that. It's contradictory for a mistaken awareness to be able to posit ultimate reality as a validly knowable object. However, for positing something as a spurious kind of validly knowable object, that mistaken cognition, here we're talking about a conventional valid cognition, which is mistaken in that it misapprehends things as existing by means of their own intrinsic identity. That mistaken cognition is a can help. That sort of mistaken cognition can help in establishing something as a spurious thing to be known, but known validly. If that's not the case, and if phenomenal things cannot be established even as phenomenal reality conventionally, then since one would be unable to posit or establish things as phenomenal reality, Then when one is conventionally positing spurious things which are like magical illusions, then one would be unable to establish them as phenomenal reality.
Oh yeah, oh that thing 저기 다然가서 군족라 야로니스 체크. 아니 단주일로라 되나 군족라 야로니스 메시. 지금 시험을 되지 야로니스 체. 나 되게 가르래서나 아니 대라양 아니 유당 유전이체. 저 유이나 아니 라나유도 치 라나마다 마주바 아니 돈이 마도 비직대랑가 또 뉴와텔라 지금 시험을 되지 양다. 또 민유와텔라. 아니 가서래 라나유도 치 라나마다 마주바 직대랑가 와기 아니 또 뉴와텔라 와봐. 유정은 해서 유전증원라 아니 라니 텐더비 zem바데 로셰수 아니 가서 주와 나신 전에 아니 또 뉴와데라 로바 유전 로바 또 민유와데라 아니 가서래 가서 유양다 유전양다 봐.
So then we were also yesterday to review discussing the way in which within the Prasangika system there's no we don't say that there are erroneous, correct and erroneous objects and correct and erroneous awarenesses of these objects in the sense of phenomenal realities, because the cognitions which know phenomenal realities for ordinary sentient beings, for sentient beings who have not yet understood emptiness, for all of their cognitions are affected by grasping things as existing by means of their own intrinsic existence. Therefore, we cannot distinguish as sort of like correct or authentic objects and correct and authentic or authentic awarenesses from incorrect objects, or let's say erroneous objects and erroneous awarenesses. From that point of view, we can't say that some of them are correct and some of them are erroneous, because both the object and the subject for ordinary persons, ordinary people that have not understood emptiness, the subject and the object both appear as if they existed by means of their own intrinsic identity. Therefore, they're affected, they're mistaken in that respect. However, within the Prasangika system, or the Prasangika system accepts the worldly way of differentiating things, such that things which even from the perspective of the world are considered to be correct are accepted from that perspective as correct, and things that within the context of the world, from the perspective of the world, are considered incorrect, those from within the worldly context are accepted as incorrect. So so they accept that sort of differentiation between correct and incorrect subjects and objects can be made within from the perspective of worldly awareness, worldly knowledge.
Oh yeah, that 대신도 다 란주박이 라 가서 시원한 신체니 시와 유전라마도 유라마도 아니 시와라 야로니 스미체바 가르에서는 시와 유두집이 유전데 아니 라리 임베 라리라로 마주베 임베 차와래 이날 라그린 처음에 나고서 시와 인나랑 그 천이지 두고에 시와 임비 유전라 야로니 스미체라 전에 수하래 인장 시와 이나 랑 유두집이 유전 라리 되라 나와다랑 그 천이 두고 고고 인장 아니 시와라 나와다 마주바 또에 매바 인장 아니 시와라 로바요 말이 와 양로 지금 말해 양로 니 지금 말해 동하다 맞죠 양로 지금 말해
So then, the Swatantrika system has a different way of seeing this, of understanding this, because in their system, they make a differentiation between correct and erroneous perceived objects. So they'll say that perceived objects can be subdivided into being correct and erroneous, in that. And they do this by means of whether the object exists as it appears conventionally, whether it's if something is conventionally exists as it appears, then it's considered to be a correct or authentic kind of object, whereas something that doesn't even conventionally doesn't exist as it appears is an erroneous kind of object. But they don't make the distinction with respect to perceiving subjects, in that for them an awareness, which awareness is, and in particular if we're talking about what's called apperception, and apperception refers to an awareness which is aware of itself. Is sort of self-aware awareness. That sort of apperception is never mistaken with respect to its appearing object. That is the appearing object within apperception, as an appearance, is not mistaken. So therefore, the apperception itself is considered to be is never erroneous with respect to its appearing object.
Oh yeah. Then 가르소래 나와다 마주와 유튜브에 수다라서 유튜브에 왕신네버 내메게 왕시 대다라 나와다 마주바 세가라 탄주일라 자디가라 다 나와다 마주바 또와라 돈이 또와 거야체. 是吧? 다 란지율라 아니 나와다 마주바 또와라 돈이 또와 고구와래서 고구와 말이 된고 된목을 쳐봐대 가르래서나 나와다 주 마주세야 돼. 니 탄주율라 된주 왕실라나 유튜브에 아니 라나위 유전 주부들라야 나도 잡아 된주도 많아와 유전 주부들 나도 매와 인상 들은 나와다 마주바 또와라 돈이 또 고아체 다 란주바게 루라 아니 유전 주부들라 가자 타와 된주 왕실라나 그요 말이 가자 된바 왕실라 매나와 디안드라위 치로 세가라 란주바들라 니유비 나냐 도대체비는 렌렌라서와 이시델라서와 란주바이듯이 도대와당 춤바 안병무슬라 만두시와임 바 거구와래 인상원숨라 된좀나나 원순 추바죠 뭐도바 인상 란주 도대체비 우반란주르라 가자 대바 왕실라 매나 대마세 니양세 양자디 나저제바 오마라저바 신조 옆세가 이굴라양 된주 왕실라 매나와 이장 단나와다 마주바 또 마주세라 왕실라 남주 차쇼데 아니 치료된도 좋아 나와다 마주바 오다 들어자고 하고선
Then, so in discussing this, we have to distinguish the way the Prasangika system understands, let's take the case of perception, and perception here referring to knowledge derived from the senses, such as the visual sense and so forth. In perception, the Prasangika school says that even perception is affected by misapprehension of things as being real. So the object that appears to perception, a visual object and so forth, is itself appears as if it exists, as if it was established as real. So that sort of misapprehension of the way the thing exists appears from the object side, or the appearance of that misapprehended object appears from the object side, even in the case of perception. But the Swatantrika school has a different way of understanding this. And the Swatantrika school, one has to differentiate between the way the Sautrantika Swatantrika school understands this. They do it more in line with the way the Vaibhashika school presents perception, more in line with the way that the Sautrantika school presents perception. And then there's the Yogacara Swatantrika school, which presents perception in line with the way the Yogacara school understands it. So in the case of the Sautrantika Swatantrika school, their model of perception is that the perceived object, sense, we're talking about the sense perception here specifically, perception, like visual perception, the appearing object there, within the appearing object, the perception cognizes it as it is. It doesn't cognize it as though it existed, as though it was established as real. That's not taking place within perception for the Sautrantika Swatantrika Madhyamika school. So they say that thus perception is not mistaken in that regard, because this sort of appearance of things as being established as real doesn't occur in the case of perception, sense perception. The object is cognized as it appears, as it exists. So in that respect, it's not mistaken. However, and then the Yogacara school, they would say that in the case of sense perception, there is a kind of error that is involved in perception, because the object appears as if it was distinct from the perceiving subject, such that the object appears as a distinct, separate thing, and so to that extent, it's mistaken. But even there, in the case of perception for both of these schools, they would say that the perceived object is not does not appear as if it was established as real, in the sense of the conceived object, which is the object of negation.
Oh yeah, that is ano kunzo gungo ta kunzo la ni che de ya shu chawa cheni. Ta ni wa tendam demba shaba la sum tendam da dembi twen shaba. tendam dembi cheni shaba. tendam dembi yawa shaba. Ta tambo la sum ye bi ni tambo twen we ni is. Ta chisa ge kasu. Ta tendam tamba tendam demba si ga ani kaso tendam tamba se di ani yujian la jai yudan yujian ni ga la jai ten yuan ba de dan de le so ana ten yang tamba ten tamba wo ten yi demba yin be ani tendam demba wo se de yu la ja ge wa de多个把一个说大家加油，天阳人、坦巴阳人别天坦巴我是，原来坦比的人那么没到把一些坦比天一别天坦巴我是，就是多个把一个了，大家加油的，但是哪些钱呢？原来坦比的人那么没到把一些坦比天一别是的，你有钱当有你来讲呢，俺呢，他那就有了钱的了，有了钱的。那告诉天阳人、坦巴阳人别天坦巴我，现在多个被其他第一就把这些，其实呢，天阳人、坦巴阳人别天坦巴的是吧？天这于天他们天巴的天当你的，天你天巴人别天天巴我是天你天巴人吧是的，南州的那是吞吧。남주단 내수 틈마도 세대 가와스를 샤고를 해서나 양 유디시비 요쟁 그 쪼고 파배냥 사이시라 자고를 마도 로 강가라 내주 내주 틈에 개고 말이 리시 도제라 저는 데만 남주데 내주 믿음 말이 르와 리시 도제라 리시 도메라 아니 저는 데만 내주 틈바 인장 괜히 담바 임베 된다베 담바오 시에숨베 된다 담바 니가 된다 담바 니라 셔도 유라 자야디 말이
So then that concludes the discussion of phenomenal reality. Then we turn to ultimate reality, and that has the explanation of that has three subdivisions: the meaning of ultimate and the meaning of reality. The definition of the explanation of the definition of ultimate reality, and then the explanation of the divisions of the ultimate. The first of these has three subdivisions: the actual subject here, and that begins with a quotation from the clear words. And this quotation also coincides with the statement. It's the same words, actually, I think, as the statement that appears in the Blaze of Reasoning text as well. So it says here, because that is an object, and because it is the highest, and because it is also the highest, it is the highest object. So the word that we're translating as ultimate here into English literally means the highest object in this context. Now, highest object is reading this in terms of the object, the ultimate as an object. It can also be understood as the ultimate referring to the subject that knows that object as well. So here, and then it says, because that is real, it is ultimate reality. So here, to go over this again, because that is a object, and because it is the highest, it is called the highest object, or the ultimate. And because that is real, it is ultimate reality. So here again, this is primarily discussing it from the point of view of the object. Here, object means the specific object here is emptiness, and but if we also think of this in terms of the subject that perceives that object, then we have to specify that it is the reasoning awareness, rational awareness, which understands emptiness directly, the non-conceptual understanding or realization of emptiness, which is free from thought. In the case of the reasoning awareness that understands ultimate reality with thought, via the medium of thought, or it is a kind of thought, then we wouldn't speak of it, wouldn't apply that in this particular context. But here, the ultimate reality is being discussed in terms of its principle, the principal awareness that knows it, which is this non-conceptual realization of emptiness.
Oh yeah. 나 된다디 가소리 태어난바다 댐바니가 유라자와체 다 양념샤 남바 미도비 이시기 유인배 태어난바 양샤 민남바 미도비 이시자래 아니 티 유인배 태어난 댐바 chen 뭐 아니 태어난 댐바스 유다 유자니가 자네 자야 돼 양나 담비된 양샤 남바 미도비 유인배 태어난바고 세계 유단 이제 유전이가를 자나샤야 두심바래 양샤 남바 미도비 이시 담반 양샤는 삶의 양샤 이시 그 전에 티 유대 윤배 안에 된다 댐바
대율
유 인베.
So then, if we read this in terms of the both being referring not just to ultimate reality as object, but ultimate reality in the sense of subject and object, its primary perceiver, or the awareness, the primary awareness that knows ultimate reality. Then it refers to the gnosis of meditative absorption on emptiness, which has as its object ultimate reality or emptiness. And in that sense, then one would say that the gnosis of that kind of meditative absorption is also the ultimate. It's the highest object, or highest, one could say the word being translated as object here could also be translated as highest objective, highest goal. It can be construed, the term being translated as meaning or object or objective has these multiple connotations. So in that case, the gnosis of meditative absorption on emptiness, the gnosis itself, the perceiver, is the ultimate as well.
다 되는 이유와 된주니 전담 된비 된주 다 가사야가 쉬자이 봐. 양한대와 된주부 시주부 된지 전반 준비된 세수하나 신세니 전담 된비 된주니 밀루와 일라 밀루와 세야데 난주다 내수 틈바 다 가사 쉬어나시 된주니 밀루와 일라 태양 내수 현도 내신 난주 현도 나네 나네 직된라 밀루와 내수 현도 내신 태양 내수 현도 내신 난주 현도 나네 직된라 밀루위치 전담대마 직된지 탄예지 왕금 밀루위치를 쓴담 내수 태양 내수 현도 내신 난주 현도 나네 직된라 밀루위치를 다 된담 남주 내주 틈바주고 거래 봐. 강 내주 현도 내신 남주 현도 나네 직된라 밀루위치 된담대 봐 직된지 탄예지 왕그 샤비 여바자 임바 림바 주주의 대화를 순서 세디 현도 내신 남주 현도 나네 직된라 밀루위치를 난주 내주 틈바자고 이제래상도 봐. 난주 현도 내신 난주 현도 나와 마인바 난주다 내주 틈바 직된라 밀루위치 아니 단단된 바 직된비 아니도 단단된 바 직된지 탄예지 왕그 여바 예비 탄예지 왕그 여바 샤바자 마인바 알레 오데 따다레다 태양 내주 현도 내신 난주 현도 내내 직된의 밀루위치를 단담된 바 직된지 탄예지 왕그 여바 샤바자 마인바 딘전티 왕그 내주 현도 내신 난주 현도 내내 직된라 밀루와 임비 균전지 단담된 바 직된지 탄예지 왕그 여바 샤바자 임바 직된지 탄예지 왕그 샤바자 여바자 임바 르바 주주의 대화를 순서 직된지 탄예지 왕그 여바 샤바자 임바 내주 현도는 탄예지 왕그 샤바자 임베 대된자지 되면지 태양 내주 현도 내신 난주의 내주 틈바지 고고하래 전담바라 밀루와 인라스 태양 내주 현도 내신 난주 현도 나와 마인바 직된나 밀루와 임비 직된라 밀루위치 단담된바데 직된지 탄예지 왕그 샤바자 임베 직된지 탄예지 왕그 샤바자 임바 르바 주주의 대화를 송두자리
So then the way in which ultimate reality is real, it says here that The way in which ultimate reality is real is that it is undeceptive. And because it appears, it's not deceptive for the world in in existing one way and appearing in another, then it is merely established as being ultimate reality by the force of worldly convention. And this is how it's explained in the commentary, Chandrakirti's commentary on the 60 verses.
Oh, then about to start some sort of the letter than to you on good water and then to sit there. Now to send to Nane, let's we send to Nessie, now to send to Lane, Nana, Chidela. Let's we send to Nasi, now to send to Nana Chidena Muluam at the Chidena Luares. Ah, Tendan Deba Muluares. Milua in the Tendan Deba, Tanya Wanga Shabi Shabata in Batuba Tuju, Devala Sunsos. That the teacher. They don't need the Nezu Chandu Nasi, Nanzu Chandu Nana, Chidana Milu Chir Sayate Chana, Tendon Dembate, Nanzu Chandu Nana, Nezu Chandu Nana, Nezu Chandu Navade, Marava, Nanzu Nezu Tumbarava, Nanzu Chandu Nana, Nezu Chandu Nana, Nanzu Chandu Navatella, Chidana Luarava. The city Tagira and Titira, and Tagata, and then by Chitanya on the Shabbat Patuchi Javala Sunso. That Demba Niji, Tatu Mindrawani Tena, Kunzo Dembani, Dembani Tatu, Tena, Kunzo Dembani, Dizzy or Demba Casa Sintavache. Kunzo Demba, Sevaka, Kunzo Timu Donjing or Demba Yinzang, Demba Che. Tendam Demba say Tadende, that Mindra is, Tendam Demba, Ni Tatu Mindra Wo. Tendam Demba did, that Tandajagi, Tanya Tambaya in bed, Tendamba Demba. Yana number meter by she Tambaki, you in bed, Tendamba, Tibache.
So then in terms of the way in which the word reality is understood for these two is different. The meaning of these words, reality, and when we say phenomenal reality and ultimate reality, the sense of that word reality is different. And so the basic text here says, therefore, the reality of phenomenal reality is real merely from the perspective of the misapprehension of things as being real, and therefore. And then so the meaning of real or reality with respect to ultimate reality, the sense of that word reality or real is different.
Nazu Shandon and Chidana Milovich did Milovich Jundan Lagone, Tandanda Batanya on the Shabbatam in Baribatuji with the Shanso, said Anita, Tandanda by George, Yoba George Tama, Tanya Bitama Tella. Tandanda by Yoba George Tanya Bitama Tella, Kotushi Yinzang. Nezu Shandun Nancy, Nazu Shandun Ane. I qui Casore Tendan Deba Tanya to Yabatawade, Chidela Milua, say Chamala Miluai, Chamala Milua Sek, Ram Milu Sir Anik or Tendan Deba Tanya Gawang Shabatam Yimba, River to Chitavala Sonso, that day said it.
Tanya to Yapat.
Oh, Tanya to Tendan Deba Tanya to Yabajongang, Lord Yuara. There is Shema in Bache. Tenda never Yaba Dongak. Tenda never Yaba Javi, She Tigi, Lotigi, Tella, and then Nezu Shandu Nation, Nanzu Shandu Nanes. Nanzu the Demba Truan, Deva Madrijan, and it didn't do Nation. Tendra Wade, 로티 타냐비 참아대 된담 좀 저봐 여봐 줘봐라 밀루와라 참아 인상 소 밀루와 인비칠 안에 된다는 대 지단지 타냐지 왕기 아니 가서 여봐 샤바 잡인바 아니 뭐 주지 저와라 순서 다다라셔다
된다는 그래서
타냐도 여봐 줘볼로티
타니도 여봐 줘볼로티 던지 쪽이 또봐 말해
던지 쪽이 또봐
타니도 여봐
또봐 참아 샤쪽으로 와
So then another way to read this previous section here, there's
또봐 참아 요아리 또메 참아 연구를 같이 해봐 요 말이
또메 참아. So another way to understand this this previous line section of the text about the way in which ultimate reality is real is that is looking at it in the way in which it is established as existing by worldly conventional knowledge. Here, worldly conventional knowledge is able to establish the existence of ultimate reality, but because it is worldly conventional knowledge is affected by is a form of mistaken awareness because it's affected by misapprehension of things as being real. It's not able to establish ultimate reality in a completely non-deceptive way. That is, it's not able to establish, it's able to establish the existence of ultimate reality, but it can't establish ultimate reality such that it, in the way that it exists, in a way such that it exists as it appears to that kind of worldly conventional knowledge. So here, worldly conventional knowledge is in reference to a process of knowing, which is knowing that ultimate reality exists, but it's not in reference to the way in which the rational awareness, which has investigated the final nature of things, has come to a understanding, a valid cognition of ultimate reality.
Oh yeah, that did in the chat. That Chinese Bala, Uji turned down, Jabba Yi Yanem. That turned out to be Chinese, we soon do la. That Kazan Yakimana, Subject Sarva. Chinese Jubale, Sheja Yanda be turned on and Yabala Sumbe. Yanda Tonyu Kandi Tinito. Mugu Yanda Jumba Toa, Union, Woni Jimbaju. Yanda Tonyu Kandi Tinito. Said Diggy. Sheja Yanda be turned Tonwe, Yabala Sumba, Mashabata Yila. Spana Taduji be Rishi. Taduji be Rishi, Yedin. Taduji be Rishi, Yedin Kanshi. Ranila, Taduji, and Castle Sama de Taduji Soma, Antona de Betani. Rava Chani. Kasasumba Yana, Rangosum to Toby Musun Seme, Yena Nubugona Toba Chawa, Tana de Betani. Ra Kasashi Saiba.
Rangansum Sema.
Rangosum to Toby Musun Seme, Yena Nubugona Toba Chawa. Tana Damba. Tani.
So then, then we turn now to the definition of ultimate reality, and this has two parts: the actual subject here, and then the getting rid of some erroneous controversies about that. And then the first of these has multiple parts, but the first of these is the way in which one identifies the definition of ultimate reality. And the basic text here begins by saying that the definition of ultimate reality is as it's given in the introduction to the Middle Way, where it says that that which so the definition of ultimate reality is that which is found by a vision which sees an object of knowledge which is a authentic or correct object. And that was discussed previously as well. The object of seeing that that which is authentic is reality is the line there from the introduction to the middle way. To say that again, the object of seeing that which is authentic is reality. So here, this is understood as the object, that which is found by a rational awareness which has investigated the final nature of things, has investigated the final nature of things. That's one way of talking about it. Or one can also say that it's the object which is found and which is known by a perception, like in the so it's that which is to be understood by means of the disappearance of a dual appearance when it is known validly in a direct perception. That's the other way of defining ultimate reality. So ultimate reality is that which is known through this kind of valid direct perception and by means of the disappearance of the dual appearance from that perception.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to say about that. 랑그다니 좋아 말에 이시치기 아니 예발에 샤그레 마도 랑그다니지 좋아네 마인데 되니 랑그다니지 좋아네 마인데 되니 오치기노 셰셰세 어디 이시기 오치기 인사데 군접단 퇴한단 바데 기기 나네 아니 그 가서에 텐단공 오치부들에 오치
So then this is explained in the commentary to the introduction. And it says that regarding that, the ultimate is a special object of the gnosis, of those who see that which is authentic, or one could say authentic or real here. Here, this vision, this kind of vision is referring to either one could say the vision which is obtained through the rational analysis, which that kind of awareness deriving from rational analysis of the final nature of things, or then finally, ultimately, the gnosis of the gnosis which knows things as they are, that form of the gnosis. So it's a special object of that. By it being that kind of special object, it has its own specific character, but it's not established by means of its own entity or own self. it's not. And that here, not being established by its own self, refers to not existing by means of its own intrinsic identity. So this special object is something that is found and is known as in its own specific character, but it's not established by means of its own intrinsic identity, by means of its own self. And so this is the one character. Here, the last part of this, where it says this is one character, it's where it's referring to everything, as we said before, everything bears two characters, the ultimate reality and phenomenal reality. So this is the first, or one of those, the character of ultimate reality.
태권하니 자위, 태권하니 자와, 태권하니 무슨도 자와, 그러봐. 무슨도 자와, 태권하니 자위 삼매지 이시지냐라스. 태권하니 자위 삼매기 이시지나 신용 무슨 도비 이시다라스 그 말이야. 그러봐. 된다와디 아니 만주 이시와, 마리바당, 춘한 제제기. 아니 말이 바당 말이 파자 가는 게 레바 마슈바 인장 아니 유진에서 치다와 신동 무슨 또와 인장 콜라 치다와 또비 세스고와 인장 시태권한이라 대자위 삼매지 이些세대 말이 베라를 단차와 저란데는 말이 베라를 단차와 이些사바메바 유지랑 신라 되는 마이노 시와레 대인장 마리베라리단차 마리바다 티 파자 가는게 말해봐 인상 추난 주제기 로데 마녀바 인상 아니 유진에서 치다와 진도 무슨 또와 인상 만주 시와 이베 찹스고 왔다더라 사맥 시와 이베 찹 또는 무슨 또 로라 만주 시와 이베 찹 사맥 시와 이베 찹스 이 루디라 사제기 시와당 사맥 시와서가 가르치라 시거래서나 마리바다 티 가는게 파자 가는게 레바 슈위 시와 되라 아니 사제 시와 마리바다 피 가롱게 마리바다 티 바자 가롱게 레바 마슈위 시와 되라 아니 가소레 사메지 시와 그러봐 인사 산제기 사 마도 봐도 아니 마리바다 바자 가롱게 말레비 시와 되라 다 가산을 나에서죠 아니 남 여자나 밤에도 이시 많이 밤이야 말이 군조 남자가 시와라 산자가 삼마도 친제도 군조 남자가 시와라 사자가 시와 임베 차와 추시 임베 차와 덴루 데나제 시와 임베 차와 순과래 자 박자 마리바다 티 바자 가롱을라고 쓰고래야 봐
So then the explanation of this further is that its ultimate reality is defined is being defined as that which is found by a gnosis, an uncontaminated gnosis, which validly knows a reality. Here, validly knows means is specifically referring to perception. It's a perception or direct perception of nature, dharmata, or here reality is another name for that. So it's that which is found. The ultimate reality is that which is found by this uncontaminated gnosis, which and then we can supply directly, validly knows reality, the dharmata or nature, final nature of things. So here we say that this when we talk about a contaminated awareness and uncontaminated awareness. Contaminated awareness is any awareness that is affected by the ignorance. That is, the ignorance is metaphorically called timara. It's a kind of eye disease that will be discussed later. So the timara of ignorance. For that kind of eye disease, there appear things like hairs and other sorts of things floating in front of one in space. And So we'll explain that later. But ignorance, as well as the propensities of ignorance, if an awareness is adulterated with either ignorance itself or the propensities of ignorance, then it's necessarily it's called a mistaken awareness. It's mistaken with respect to its appearing object on some level at least. And so according to this system then, all awarenesses prior to becoming a Buddha are mistaken awarenesses, at least insofar as they're adulterated with the propensities of ignorance. They may not necessarily have ignorance itself operating within them, but they might, if one is not a Buddha, one's awareness is adulterated with the propensities of ignorance, and therefore is a kind of mistaken awareness.
아니 사매기 이시 돈용 모습도 이시 많이 봐요 말했어.
돈이 도비
모습도 이시 많이 봐요 말했어.
돈이 문순도 도비
돈용 모습도 이시에 말이 봐도 뒤 바자 가run가 말해 봐도 체. 태 많이 봐 간가 아니 다 사자 시바. 말이 봐도 뒤 가장 내봐 쉬와.
I made a mistake in the translation there. I have to correct something. Apart from the direct perception of emptiness, all awarenesses prior to the achievement of Buddhahood are affected by, are adulterated with ignorance or the propensities of ignorance. So we have to qualify. What I said previously was in the translation mistaken. The awarenesses, the direct perception of emptiness is an uncontaminated awareness because it is not adulterated with ignorance or the propensities of ignorance. But until one achieves Buddhahood, all other awarenesses apart from that direct perception of emptiness, non-conceptual direct perception of emptiness, is necessarily a contaminated awareness, and therefore is a mistaken awareness. So that is the difference here.
Oh, 말을 받아 뒤 바자 가루 쓸거와 진짜 가르래 사나. 얘랑 다좀 받아. 사제바 톱지 잠바. 말을 받방 말해. 다 말을 받방 자와 인자 뒤 연재라 말을 빌려봐 시가요 말해. 是吧? 다 뒤엔제라 대엔제 그 군조남제 그 시와 태라 안에 된로 나와디 투난 제제 주카르에서는 다 말이비 샤피 파자티가 왕그 투난 기가 어때인자 강루시 그 군자 될 통화를 하고서
So then, where it says that any kind of awareness prior to becoming a Buddha, apart from the meditative absorption on emptiness, which is a direct perception of emptiness, is a mistaken awareness. The reason we say that is that so once one proceeds through the path, and until one becomes an arhat or a pratyeka Buddha arhat, or has accomplished achieved the 8th stage of the Bodhisattva path, then one still has ignorance within one's mental continuum, and therefore one's awarenesses and one also has, of course, the propensities of ignorance, the sort of left over, the imprints left by ignorance. So because those are present, then one's awareness, apart from a direct perception of emptiness, is necessarily a mistaken awareness in that the object appears to one as if it was real. And then even once one becomes an arhat or achieves the 8th bodhisattva stage, because one still possesses the imprints of ignorance within one's mind, mental continuum, then when phenomenal things appear, they appear in an erroneous fashion, in a mistaken fashion, such that they appear to be real, even if one has gotten rid of the misapprehension, the ignorance, which is the misapprehension that they are real, they nevertheless still appear as real from those imprints.
Oh, yeah. 제 태권한테 제외 삼회지 이시지 녀라 녀바 태양 랑게 마주와 랑게 오예 마주바 송배 냠샤 삼회지 녀주지 슈나 담바 주와 이노 다 삼회기 녀주지나 녀나 안에 담바 인고 담바 주와 인고래 세가 전담 담바 된두던게 차와 주지 생기라서 와 송거래 가서 리시라 샤자연나 된주지 소면 언제开와다 장 같이 되니도 되라 세대 리시님 보디 리시라 샤자연나 아니 니주지 시간 된주지 니주지연나 아니 담바 주와 더고 연장 리시라 샤자연나 된주도 소면 언제开와다 장 같이 되니도 되라 소아 차와 추지 생기기 리시라 샤자연와 연장 아니 된주开련바 된다 받는开련바 是吧？来了，定住小国人章，有些下家人的定住要人的，我们话了定住没有人章，俺那这些了下家人的定住小国人章，俺那来了这些了有要嘛的是，有要嘛的是懂的。然后来了，可是这些稍微有美，结巴子稍微越谁干了？俺那他，我听这个钱钱的小哥哎。 다 평화와 대 가상 시와인 바 어떤데 조단 마시와 인자 어떤데 뛰는 거 같다 그래서 어 인자한테 디 차취 송하기 대송 거 아래 대권한 자유 삼매지 20년라 아주바선라 삼매지 20년지 중에 담바 주바 인노 시마와 까바 인노
So therefore, this passage here, which says that that ultimate reality is that which is found, which is arrived at or found by the uncontaminated gnosis, which validly knows reality. That here referring to direct perception of dharmata, the final nature of things, Then, but it's not. That is not established by its own intrinsic character. It's not established by means of its own intrinsic nature or being, and since it's taught that way. Since the Chandrakirti teaches us in that way, therefore this passage negates those who would say that if there was something that was to be found by the non-contaminated meditative absorption, then if such a thing existed, it would have to be established as real. There were multiple views that existed within Tibet about this, where some masters, such as Chapa Chögyal Singye, said that since the uncontaminated meditative absorption this has to find something, and if it finds something, then it necessarily has to be real. It has to be established as real. So he was of the opinion that ultimate reality was established as real. Others said that since seeing the problems in this position, that if something is found by this meditative absorption that is uncontaminated, that it would be established as real. They were of the opinion that there's nothing to be found, that there's no object of knowledge to be found there, as we mentioned earlier in some of these misconceived views that were discussed previously, and then others say that Rikshiki Nyepamares, Rikshi Nyepamares. So, but then some would say that there's no object which serves as that which is found by the rational awareness investigating that's investigated the final nature of things. Yet they would say that there is an object, that the ultimate reality can be an object which is determined, which is determinable by inference. So these various views were propounded.
Oh yeah, Kaba ino si kase, Shema Kaba ino. Tayaga Ishiji Chaba, Yandaba Sibi, Ishiji Chabar, Uniki Zedi, Ishiji Chaba, Shesumbani, Paba Ishi Kanyanji Neba Micho, Paba Ishela, Anesaja Samaniga Yoare. Yida Kang Paba Ishi Kanyaminji Neba Michoba, Ishiji Chabar, Taya, Chidawa Chamba. 치다와 동반이라잖아요. 치다와 김비 이시지 녀바직 된단 된바. 다 녀바직 벌써 녀바상가데 또바 잠라잖아. 다 가산 지금 미즈바셔인 바. 야나 이 치다와 김비 이시지 대 아니 치다와 유대라 치다와 김비 이시스 송와지라. 아니 된단 된바. 야나 치다와 김비 이시티의 요지 쪼지라 된단다. 다 측정자와 되지나 라 어두시 치다와 김비 이시지 녀바지라 된단다 담바고 드시면.
So then here it says that where it says a special gnosis, here it's special gnosis, the object. Ultimate reality is the object, is the very object of a special gnosis. I think in the translation I gave previously, I said special object. It should the term, the qualification special should be construed with gnosis rather than the object as such. Although it probably doesn't make too much difference. Well, it does here. So here the special gnosis. Where the commentary says special gnosis, it means that it's not sufficient for it to be found by any just any kind of gnosis of the Aryas. Rather, the special gnosis refers to the gnosis that knows things as they are, the gnosis that knows things as they are. And so that which is found by that special gnosis, the gnosis which knows things as they are, is taught here as ultimate reality. Jitoa can be yeshiki nyepachik. So if we read it that way, then it works. It works that way.
예비턴이 세와디 다다 주비턴노 세다 예비턴디 세와티 치다와 침비 예세티 아니 예세데 유텔라 아니 가서로 치다와를 갔다 유텔라 타도 제제도 송유관에 주바디 아니 송와디 아니 타도 제제 송와디 다다 주비턴이래 야나 다 녀바데 저 측정 맞아야 되나 녀바네 대 유대의 유전의 유대 트리뷰터리.
So one can take this in terms of the object or the subject here. One can say that as far as the object which is found, here the text says the object which is found is the object which is established as that or thus by that awareness. So the awareness here is again referring to this special gnosis of the Arya's gnosis, which understands things as they are. And so the object which is found by that is established as that by that awareness. One can read it that way, or one can say from the point of view of the awareness, saying that the awareness established
유텔라 아니 타도 저지도 송와테 안티 트위터에 대인 다양 될 때 군조라 양다를 아니 친이바 친비 시티 아니 유텔라 타냐 제제도 송와데 아니 유의 트위터에 군조라 유의 트위터에 군조디 유의 트위터 이비터
군조도 니비도
타냐 제제 송와다 타도 제제 송와 어거세
이시디
지다의 재미 이시디 유대라 타도 제제로 송나 유대다 남다 인고래 유의 트위터에
단위 주제도
진여와 재미 이시디 유대라 타냐 제제 송와 지다와 재미 유대 이시디 유대라 타도 제제 송와
So then here this special gnosis, which is the gnosis of things as they are, that is what the object found by that is established as that by that awareness. So here it's saying that this gnosis, special gnosis, which is investigating things as they are. It arrives at that kind of object, ultimate reality, whereas the gnosis, on the other hand, the gnosis which understands things in their diversity, because it is investigating the conventions. It is because it is investigating conventions. The objects that are established by that are phenomenal. They're phenomenal things. So the two forms of gnosis, the gnosis which knows things as they are, it's investigating the final nature of things, whereas the gnosis which understands things in their plurality or diversity, is investigating the conventionality of things.